Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the online Leadership Insights session jointly organized by the Law Society of Hong Kong and the Hong Kong Bar Association on the occasion of the ceremonial opening of legal year 2021 in Hong Kong. My name is CM Chan, Vice President of the Law Society of Hong Kong. While valuable face-to-face meetings and conferences are unfortunately not an option due to the pandemic, with the help of technology, we are able to continue our collaboration and information exchange with lawyers, associations, and legal practitioners around the world. Today, this Leadership Insights session will focus on the opportunities for Hong Kong and Hong Kong's particular role after the signing of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and in the Greater Bay Area. Before we begin, a number of housekeeping matters. I would like to remind you that some important notes on Zoom webinar. You are automatically muted and are in listening mode only. Simultaneous interpretation in English and Putonghua is available for keynote session only. Please select the audio channel to hear the translated audio in your language of choice from the control panel at the bottom. The chat room allows you to send chat messages to the host, panelists, and attendees. And if you have any questions for the speakers, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A box during or after the presentations. For more detailed instructions regarding the Zoom webinar functions, please refer to the chat message posted by the Law Society Secretariat. So without further ado, may I now invite Ms. Melissa Pang, President of the Law Society of Hong Kong, to deliver the opening address. Ms. Pang, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, on behalf of the Law Society of Hong Kong, let me give you a warm welcome. I welcome all of you from different time zones on joining our first online Leadership Insights session. I'm sure you'll find the topics in the coming hours interesting. And please don't forget to join our concurrent session after the panel discussion. It's an honor for us to have Mr. Nicholas Kwan, Research Director at the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, to be our keynote speaker today. He'll give us a big picture of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, the newly signed agreement to facilitate trade and investments between countries in the region. Before Mr. Guan gives insight on the topic, let me bring you some updates about another inspiring initiative, the Greater Bay Area, and the opportunities it opens to Hong Kong's legal profession. The Belt and Road Initiative and the Greater Bay Area Initiative, they are all national strategies of China that complement each other. The former aims to build closer synergy among China and countries along the Belt and Road, while the latter develops an international Bay Area within China, deepening cooperation among Guangdong, the Hong Kong SAR, and the Macau SAR, creating synergy while fully leveraging the composite advantages of the three places. These two initiatives give rise to exciting business opportunities for many, and a corresponding increase in the demand for the relevant legal support and services. One of the Hong Kong strengths as a legal hub of the Greater Bay Area lies in its people. The legal profession in Hong Kong brings together a group of international talent. Let me take this opportunity to give you some information about the solicitor's profession in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Law Society is the professional association for lawyers, solicitors in Hong Kong. To practice as a solicitor in Hong Kong, one must be a member of Hong Kong Law Society and hold a current practicing certificate. As of December 2020, We have 10,759 practicing solicitors and 940 local law firms. Hong Kong has adopted an open door policy, and we welcome legal talents from around the world to join us. Overseas qualified lawyers may register as foreign lawyers in Hong Kong and provide legal services in Hong Kong pertaining to foreign law. Foreign lawyers are attracted to set up their base in Hong Kong because they see potential in the Hong Kong legal services market. At the end of last year, we have 1,553 registered foreign lawyers from 33 different jurisdictions, and we have 95 foreign law firms in Hong Kong. Being equipped with top quality local and international legal capability, Hong Kong lawyers are able to provide one-stop legal services to meet clients' demand for sophisticated legal services in areas such as fundraising, finance, securities, international trade, cross-border transactions, intellectual property, maritime law, trust, and charities, and many more. Hong Kong's edge makes it a legal hub. And the strength is because we do have a very robust legal system, which is firmly based on its judicial transparency and the rule of law. Under the unique arrangement of one country, two systems, Hong Kong remains an open and free economy. And Hong Kong is the only place in China practicing the common law system, whilst the rest of China adopts the civil law system. The Greater Bay Area represents a further step in taking forward the practice of one country, two systems. It is indeed one of the 6 guiding principles of the Greater Bay Area to adhere to one country, two systems, and act in accordance with the law. The Department of Justice of the Hong Kong SAR government launched Vision 2030 of Rule of Law Initiative this year. This initiative aims to promote and reinforce the rule of law. And Hong Kong dollars 450 million will be earmarked to implement this initiative, which will last for 10 years. The strength of Hong Kong is well noted by the central government, and it is mentioned particularly in the outline development plan of the Greater Bay Area. That as one of the core cities in the Greater Bay Area, Hong Kong is positioned to be the center for international legal and dispute resolution services. This positioning allows Hong Kong to leverage on its experience and expertise in dispute resolution and the legal profession to handle disputes and address the demand for high-quality legal services in the Greater Bay Area. Pilot measures for Hong Kong and Macau legal practitioners to obtain mainland practice qualifications and to practice as lawyers in the Greater Bay Area on a 3-year pilot basis have been implemented in 2020. Upon getting the practice qualification, Hong Kong solicitors and barristers, they can provide legal services regarding specified civil and commercial affairs, which include litigation and non-litigation businesses, using the mainland applicable laws in the Greater Bay Area. And they can also enjoy the same privileges and obligations as mainland lawyers. And for those who want to apply for the examination, they need to be solicitors and barristers with 5 years of post-qualification experience. As such, we can see young practitioners can capitalize on the development of the Greater Bay Area and further enhance Hong Kong's legal status. This examination will take place very soon, and I'm pleased to learn that many Law Society members have registered for the examination. Another opportunity that emerges is the amendments to the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone, Qinghai Shenzhen Hong Kong Modern Services Cooperation Zone regulations. These regulations were passed in 2020. This liberalization measure is a breakthrough. It allows enterprises registered in the Qinghai Cooperation Zone to choose the applicable law, including Hong Kong laws, when they enter into civil and commercial contracts. More, Hong Kong's Department of Justice is exploring and studying the possibility of introducing an initiative to allow Hong Kong-owned enterprises to adopt Hong Kong laws and arbitration to be seated in Hong Kong. This aim is to allow wholly owned Hong Kong enterprises in the Greater Bay Area, although they don't have any foreign-related elements, they will be able to choose the laws of Hong Kong as the applicable law when they enter into civil and commercial contracts. Also, they can choose Hong Kong as the seat of arbitration when disputes arise. Therefore, the agreement on choosing Hong Kong laws or using Hong Kong as a seat of arbitration will not be considered invalid just because there's no foreign-related elements. With the abundance of Hong Kong multi-jurisdictional legal talents, international connections, experience and expertise in handling cross-border transactions, I am confident that Hong Kong is well placed to tap into the opportunities of the Greater Bay Area. I hope you'll find this session informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pang, for the very informative speech. May I now invite Mr. Philip Dykes, SC, Chairman of Hong Kong Bar Association, to give us the opening address. Mr. Dykes, please.
Good day, wherever in the world you are. It's morning here in Hong Kong. I can be shorter than the President of the Law Society because in this area, you're going to discuss the opportunities afforded by participation in enterprise in the Greater Bay Area. The bar follows and the Law Society leads. That's because the profession of the bar here is a referral profession. We provide a specialized corps of advocates who will be instructed by solicitors and to go to court to argue their cases. I should say that the bar is much smaller than the Law Society. I'm responsible as chairman for about 1,600 members. About 1/3 of those are under 7 years admissions. It's quite a young profession. Like in England and Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and other places in the common law world, barristers are organized into chambers. They do not form partnerships. There's no profit sharing. We don't handle money or property. As I say, we are a thorough profession and we tend to follow where solicitors lead. All barristers, of course, undertake advocacy work in all courts up to and including the Court of Final Appeal. Some barristers in practice in Hong Kong also have practices in London because the legal systems are very similar. I should say, on behalf of the solicitor profession, that some solicitors too have higher rights of audience in the courts comparable to those of the bar, but they are very much in a minority. An unusual feature about the bar in Hong Kong is that we carry the open profession to the extremes, in as much as we will admit overseas lawyers, mainly experienced lawyers, barristers from England, to advocate in courts in Hong Kong if the case is considered complex or novel, or otherwise requires the use of overseas experience. We had just yesterday our court here admitting the government's request to bring in a London QC to prosecute one of my predecessors at the bar, Martin Lee, the media tycoon Jimmy Lai, and several former legislators for participating in a lawful but peaceful assembly in 2019. That is an example of how flexible we can be. As I say, the barristers in Hong Kong have their own specializations. A lot of them specialize in arbitration work, and that forms a very healthy subset of practice for many of my members. As for the bar participating in the opportunities afforded by the Greater Bay Area, as I say, that would depend very much on the Hong Kong courts maintaining their reputation as competent expert courts underpinned by commitment to the rule of law, a matter which is under question at the moment. But if that is maintained, I have no doubt that we will succeed in maintaining the confidence of overseas participants in the great adventure that is the Greater Bay Area. That's all I wish to say. I'll hand you back to Mr. Chan.
Thank you for your speech, Mr. Dykes. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Nicholas Kwan, Director of Research of Hong Kong Trade Development Council, as our keynote speaker to share his invaluable experience and insights on the two hot topics in the region, the newly signed Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and the Greater Bay Area development. Nicholas joined Hong Kong Trade Development Council as the Director of Research in 2013. His department provides in-depth and up-to-date analysis and advice on economic and trade issues, covering key industries and services in Hong Kong, the Chinese mainland, and most major and emerging markets. Nick has over 30 years of experience of economic and business research. So without further ado, I now hand the mic over to Nick. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CM, and thank you for Law Society and Bar Association in having me in this important and eventful event. Being a career economist, I must apologize that I have minimal knowledge about legal affairs. So to a large extent, my speech will focus on the economic relationship and understanding about these two great projects, the RCEP and GP8. And hopefully I can learn more about the legal aspect of these two initiatives during the discussion. Feels nice just to make sure things are easier to explain, given the complication of the issue itself. First, about the RCEP, I think most people will learn from the media that how important it is. To be honest, it is big in size and could be significant in impact. The plan itself covers about 30% of the world's population, 2.2 to 2.3 billion people, which are covering also about 30% of the world's GDP or output, 26 trillion. Mind you, it is a relatively unbalanced type of composition, which I will explain later on. Of the 26 trillion, half of those are actually from one single party, China, and the rest is coming from another 14 countries. In terms of impact, honestly, as an economist, I think it is a very risky as well as highly speculative type of analysis. But thanks for Brookings Institute's analysis, they had actually come up with some numbers for people's reference. Their estimate is that in 10 years' time, by 2030, this initiative could easily add $209 billion per output each year. That's about half the size of Hong Kong's output today. And in terms of trade, it also will add about 500 billion of trade, either inter or intra-regional per year. Again, it is about half the trade we handle directly from Hong Kong each year currently. So for people in Hong Kong, they can easily imagine that if things goes well in 10 years' time, and no matter whether we are part of it or not, this outfit, RCEP, will easily generate half Hong Kong's output as well as trade in the region. And to what extent we can capture on that opportunities is very interesting for us. Going into more details about the RCEP versus other regional trade platforms, most people are aware that within the region, there's another important platform. Actually, before RCEP, the largest trade platform in a regional sense is the CPTPP, starting with TPP and then add on the CP names. Here's a list of the members. About half of the RCEP members are actually also members of CPTPP. The list here, I won't go into details. And the number next to them, to the country, is the size of the GDP. So you can see the other half, which is about 8 countries, which are not inside inside CPTPP. Looks like the number is about the same, but in terms of the economy, China, which is 13 trillion economy, overwhelms the whole thing. So that makes the RCEP, if everything being equal, the most important regional trade platform we have today. But of course, when we talk about trade platforms, what really matters is about the content of the platform itself. Most people think this trade platform is about trade, and trade means merchandise trade, which is only actually a very small part of these modern day trade platforms. What is missing in RCEP, but present in CPTPP, is a few key areas like trade relationship concerning about state-owned enterprises, SOEs, which is actually a very important, a growingly important topic, not even in the region, but also in the international arena. Under WTO, there's a lot of discussion about that. The other area is about labor, to what extent labor situations should be covered under these trade agreements, environment, and agriculture, which is actually a very old topic, but never been well resolved, even under the global level WTO or the GATT before that. We understand agriculture is very sensitive, not just for the developing country where a large part of the population is in that sector, but also in, or even more, in the industrial countries where a lot of subsidies and very strong lobbies are behind this sector. So by leaving out these 4 sectors, 4 key topics, do we make RCEP less important or actually make it easier to implement? It depends on how you think and how you look at it. But to be honest, I think the easier way to look at the RCEP is that it is a combination of many existing bilateral free trade agreements. The way that RCEP seems to come up much faster than any other regional trade platform is that there's a lot of existing trade agreement, basically centered around ASEAN, the 10 countries of Southeast Asia. And what this RCEP makes is that they put together all these feature agreement with not much changes in the content. What is new to this platform is that one country, Japan, doesn't have FTA with China, South Korea, and New Zealand before that. So what RCEP actually add to the existing FTA network is these three connections between Japan, China, Japan, South Korea, and Japan, New Zealand. So if anything you look at and say, to what extent there will be a very new element, just look at Japan's chapter, to what extent they have offered new trade concessions, preferential treatments to the other trade parties, particularly these three, China, South Korea, and New Zealand. What is more interesting is that there's an understanding right after the starting of the signing of this agreement of RCEP, China, South Korea, and Japan will reinitiate their tri-party FTA negotiation. So to that extent, it is very important that RCEP not just put together these 15 countries in terms of the existing trade future agreement, but also kickstart something very new and important, particularly for the Northeast Asia region. For details is that every trade agreements will take some time to be really implemented. It needs to be ratified by the specific parliaments or governments of those 15 members. And there are two strands of it. Within ASEAN, they require 6 out of 10 ASEAN countries to ratify it, plus another 3 out of the 5 non-ASEAN members to do so. 60 days after all these 9, or minimum of 9 ratification done, then RCEP will kick into effect. So how long it will take? Most people's guess is that easily a year, maybe even longer. The future agreement between Hong Kong and ASEAN, the 10 countries we have, take more than a year and a half almost to get it get into effective. So sometimes things will take time to evolve, but it doesn't mean that you can only prepare or start preparing for the changes after the ratification. A lot of things are actually up and running. In different aspects of the details about the RCEP, let me just go through it very quickly. It's a 20-chapter document, so there's no way I can make it clear enough for everybody. But in general case, what is involved in trade, most people interest is about the tariffs cuts offered towards different parties. To be honest, as I said, that it is a combination of a lot of bilateral FTAs. So in terms of tariff concessions, there are some add-ons, but not much. So most of those are actually existing FTAs offers. What is new is just around Japan, China, Japan, Korea, and Japan, New Zealand. That is a new part of it. And then there's another thing is that there's a promise to harmonize the country of origin rules. This is an area which is important not just for RCEP countries, but for Hong Kong also. Because we all understand that in this region, there's a major change going through among the different industries, a kind of reorganization of supply chain. Factories moving from one country to another for different reasons. And because of these changes and relocation, it makes it much more complicated to identify what a product or where it is coming from. To what extent it's made from China, or made in Hong Kong, or made in Southeast Asia, or wherever. So under different trade agreements, they have different rules. So what RCEP promises is that they will try to harmonize the rules to make it easier and simpler. If that is done, it will make the regional trade flows, regional relocation of industries regional realignment of industries much more smoother than what is existing. The other area about trade is about custom facilitation. We know that sometimes product flows through borders, not so much of how much tariffs are there, but how easy is it to go through different custom formalities. So here's another area which this RCEP promised to cut down and facilitate. In terms of competition, there's not much in actual facts, but there's a lot of promises being given. And in fact, for a few countries like Laos, Brunei, Myanmar, and Cambodia, where no existing regime or authority is looking after the competition area, they promise to set up something and establish the regime. So this is something new for the region going forward. In terms of government procurement, is another key area of trade issues. There's a pledge to publish the rules, not to make new rules, but to publish the rules to make it more transparent, as well as to consult and exchange information about the government procurement. It is another sensitive area. I understand that even in the US, just recently, they have come up with some new rules in terms of government procurement, where some members of WTO, including Hong Kong, believe that it is a violation of the existing or the promise that they have given to WTO before. So it is an issue constantly under debate and discussions. So what this RCEP try to do is to do the minimum and make sure that what different parties have promised is transparent to the others and they can discuss about it. Something similar to digital trade, which is a new area of trade. A lot of trade flows, not just trade under digital arrangements, but also the trade of data. Here, we have promises to localize storage, sharing of data, and to document signature and authentication of trade documents and trade matters. So this is a new area which I hope and going forward will be very important for facilitating of trade flows. Service area is probably one area our audience will be interested as a legal profession. Again, there's not much new, but to be honest, there's still some new things. If you look into individual country chapters, for instance, for Australia, where legal profession is one major area of their strength, they managed to have new developments or undertakings from quite a number of the RCEP members, including China and many Southeast Asian countries, that the legal profession can get better treatments. I won't get into details because I'm not an expert in this area, but in general speaking, the promise is for most favored nation treatment, lateral treatment, and wider the market access in different service sectors for the RCEP members. Investment is another area I guess will be interest to our audience. There's low investor state dispute settlement arrangements. It is one area where many of the investors are interested to see, but at least there's a promise to start the negotiation of our ISDS arrangement less than 2 years after this RCEP become effective. So if we take a year to get effective, so within 3 years' time, they will start to negotiate an ISDS arrangement among the RCEP members. So it will take time, but another things to move forward. Lastly, about the IP area, again, like customs and country of origin rules, they're looking for a single trademark patent application process so that you don't need to register your trademark in different places and all the 15 countries and reduce your time and effort to facilitate development. So these are the key features of the RCEP so far. Again, I said that it's a 20 chapter things. If you're interested, you can easily look at it from the net, but it will take time before it's being actually implemented. And mind you, there's still need a lot of implementation details and rules to come through from the different members to make it work. let me switch a little bit to the Greater Bay Area, and then I try to bring the two together for people who are interested about Hong Kong's role and opportunities. As mentioned by Melissa, that Greater Bay Area is a very interesting initiative. There's different views about it. Some people say that this is just a regional trade or economic development idea, that they try to put 11 cities, including 2 special administrative regions, to be together. For those who are more sensitive about different systems, they say that these places, including all one country, but 3 different jurisdictions in terms of legal, monetary, finance, etc. So for better integration, it may make things to be the same. But why this region is so important? Just look at the size itself. It's about a 70 million population region, bigger than what you have in the UK, in many of the countries in Europe. And in terms of GDP, it's about the same size as South Korea. We don't want to compare with how big is the share out of China's population as China's GDP, which is highlighted here. But for audience outside of China and outside of the region, you can just imagine that it is one part of China which have the size of GDP of South Korea, and almost double the size of the population there. And to some extent, you can also think that this is an area with an economy as big as Australia, even though in terms of land mass it's much less. Why is it important? I think it is based on these 3 areas or 3 characteristics. If you look at China's economy as a whole, there are different regions, different bay areas you can call about from north to south. But this region is particularly important or special is because it's the first area in China which opened up to the outside world some 40 plus years ago. So even now, it is still the most open area in terms of economic system or even social and other aspects. It's also a very market-driven area. A lot of the market reforms or market-oriented reforms start from this region, including from basic like contract system, employment system, labor, land, all those so-called market versus planning system changes were started in this region. And what is important for China is that because what people believe that China's economic revival or rejuvenation in the last 40 years is largely because it switched successfully from a central or highly central planning system to a market system. And this transformation of reform is still going on. So from here going forward, how can we make China more market-driven and introduce the market element into a wider aspect of different lives of aspects of China's economy? And lastly, because of this being more market-driven and more open, is the most international or mostly globally connected region. And all of these are 3 aspects. Actually, Hong Kong plays a very significant role. You can easily say that we are the most open economy, not just in China, but also around the world. We are one of the most market-driven economy. To some extent, people say that our market system is overdone, free markets everywhere, and there seems to be less regulation or control that the government or the society has. And we are highly international in the sense that even in terms of trade, even though we handle 1 trillion of trade each year, there's minimal amount of those are actually locally related. A lot of our trade is the export business that roots through us. So if I were to take it back to why it's important for us in terms of the GPA as well as the RCEP aspect, is that GPA is unique because of those 3 aspects: being open, being market, and being international. And it's being so, the one key critical thing is that we have 1 country, 2 systems here. Without the one country, two systems, I can hardly imagine this region being the most open, most international, and most market-driven part of China. Why is it important now for China as well as for Hong Kong and probably the rest of the world? Is for China to connect better with the rest of the world, it needs to deepen these connections, be more open, be more market-driven, and be more international. And one example for that, or one initiative behind that, is RCEP, which brings China closer with all the regional trade parties or economic parties in the region. There's a lot of promises, as I just mentioned and highlighted, under the RCEP, but to what extent these promises between China and the rest and other members can be realized, can be fruitfully implemented, it very much depends on how, to what extent China can be more open, more internationally connected. So I highlight a few things which are actually Melissa have explained in terms of changes in legal professions, but it serves an interesting example. Under the one country, two systems, there's a lot of changes within this Greater Bay Area which try to incorporate or integrate the foreign element, international element, particularly in terms of legal profession, into or to work closer with the Chinese existing mainland system. And I think this not just stop at the legal profession, but also the other kind of professions. And for that to carry on and to deepen and to be successful, it will make the Greater Bay Area a pioneer in China's connection with the rest of the world. And that will also connect us closer with countries like those members in the RCEP. So if I have to conclude, is that at the moment, don't expect too much from RCEP itself, because it will still take time to realize. And fortunately or unfortunately, Hong Kong is not part of it yet. Even though we have promised and undertaking that hopefully we'll be among the first batch to join the RCEP when the membership is opened to other members. But on the other hand, things are ongoing under the GPA and other initiatives to make China more connected and more internationally related with the rest of the world, including its immediate counterparties under the RCEP. So there's a lot of work we have to do, and Hong Kong's role can play. I can hopefully discuss in more details how exactly we can do and what kind of opportunities can offer under the GPA, provided that we do it right. The whole things could actually benefit Hong Kong a lot going forward. So hopefully I have done my job not too badly, and I hand it back to the moderator, CM, for further discussions.
Thank you very much, Nick, for your very inspiring speech about these two initiatives, and especially for the Hong Kong legal profession, how we position ourselves and prepare ourselves in view of these two important initiatives. In terms of connecting China with the rest of the world, Hong Kong does have an important role to play. So this is now the time for panel discussion and Q&A. So if you have any questions for the three speakers, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A box. Do we have any question yet? No. Maybe I can ask the first question to the three speakers, or anyone just jump in. I mean, to me, the most important aspect from the legal profession point of view is how do we support these two initiatives? How does the Hong Kong legal profession support these two initiatives? When we talk about legal services, there are always two aspects of it. One is deal making, how lawyers facilitate a commercial transaction. That's the first aspect of it. The second aspect of our legal services, of course, is contentious work, dispute resolution work. I can see a lot of opportunities from these two distinct area: deal making, dispute resolution. So maybe the first question to Ms. Pang. Any views on our role in the future under these two initiatives? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. I think I would like to stress that like Hong Kong Law Society, we do have like over 12,000 solicitor, and for practicing solicitor, like it's over 10,000. When you look at the Hong Kong population, it's only 7.4 million. We can see like every 600 people, we do have one solicitor. But the Hong Kong market, we don't just concentrate on the local market. It's very important to see that Hong Kong as an international legal hub. Hong Kong economy is an outward economy. So that's why Hong Kong, for the legal profession, we can see that besides the Hong Kong local solicitor, 12,000 of them, we have over 1,600 foreign lawyers. The importance and the beauty of it is Hong Kong as a legal hub. We are attracting international talents to come along. And Hong Kong can offer one-stop service. We are serving the Hong Kong people, also serving international businesses. We are the legal hub in the region, and we are proud to be one. And I think every year we do have a lot of young lawyers joining us. And I think it's important for us to make the legal pie much bigger. It's important for lawyers, besides having very good technical skill in the legal knowledge and how to deal with deal making, arbitration, dispute resolution. It's important for us to be aware of what's going around in the world. Therefore, I really have to thank Nick for sort of bringing more details about RCEP to us. Because RCEP, I think to many lawyers like in Hong Kong, we heard of it, we sort of know it, but we don't really know about the details of it. I think in order to learn more, know more, I think it can equip our younger generation of our legal profession to go forward and also to serve their clients better. And another point I would like to make is, at the moment for the legal talents in Hong Kong, for the Hong Kong solicitor, many of them have qualification, a lot from England and Wales, from Australia, from Singapore, also from America as well. And now because of the opening of the Greater Bay lawyers exam, so at the moment, according to my information, like over 600 people are registered for the exam. It's good for Hong Kong lawyers, both barrister and solicitor, to learn more about the mainland system and to sit for the exam. Because you can see there's a lot of cross-border transaction, both trade and investment. In order to serve our clients better and also serve our international clients better, it is important for us to have good knowledge and also it's best to even qualified, be able to advise on mainland laws. I think I'll stop here for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pang. I do share some of Ms. Pang's views that Hong Kong legal profession does have an important role to play in terms of helping China integrate into the world. I always stress that Hong Kong is the only city in China that practices common law. And the common law tradition really connects Hong Kong with the rest of the common law world. May I pick on Mr. Dykes on his thoughts after hearing what Nick has said about the two initiatives and the impact on Hong Kong and China. Any views to share?
Not a great deal. Like I said in my opening, the barrister side of the profession will tend to follow where the solicitors will lead. We're certainly not involved in deal making. As for contentious matters, if they come to Hong Kong or they sort it out in Hong Kong, that's fine. We will offer such skill and expertise that we have to offer. I should say that the opportunity to go into the mainland with this new professional exam is not so attractive for barristers, because solicitors who go in will have the backing of a firm. it's quite a different matter for a barrister to commit himself to taking off and going into the mainland with no support or connections. I believe there are a few hardy individuals that will try that, but the bar will function really as a source of skills in relation to dispute resolution within Hong Kong for matters arising across the border.
Thank you, Mr. Dykes. I perhaps I have one more comment to put to Nick. Of course, this is the legal profession we're talking about now. The Hong Kong government, as well as the Law Society, have been focusing on making Hong Kong, as Ms. Pang put it, legal hub in the region, or more specifically as the seat of preferred seat of arbitration. And Mr. Dykes also mentioned that this is an important practice area for the barristers branch of the lawyers in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government actually set up a legal hub in the old French mission building, attracting international arbitration organizations to have a seat in Hong Kong. I do see that potentially a big area. Nick mentioned that Hong Kong is not yet a member of RACP, but as you can imagine, in terms of trade, in terms of disputes, there should be some demand for cross-border dispute resolution services. So Hong Kong can actually play a role. As I mentioned from time to time, Hong Kong is the only city that practices common law in China. With the common law tradition, I think the international community will feel comfortable to actually have the dispute to be resolved in Hong Kong under RACP or otherwise. Nick, any particular view on this point?
Yes, a little bit of add-in is that we have to aware that Hong Kong's special characteristic in the sense that even though we are not part of RCEP and we actually are not members of many of the global international regional trade agreements or partnerships, but the specificity of our economy is that we do a lot of offshore services. Things that doesn't really happens here, we still can capture the opportunities around. I'm no professional in legal area. I understand that different sectors and different areas of the same profession will have their specialties. For instance, I heard that some of the best IP lawyers, which understand about China and the West, the differences and how to handle that, is actually can be found here rather than anywhere else. So Hong Kong's specialty is that we do a lot of also of services, even in terms of trade. As I just mentioned, people think that once they have a synchronized country of origin arrangement among different RCEP members, then trade may go direct. And Hong Kong being a hub for re-export will lose our business. To be honest, we don't see it this way. Otherwise, Hong Kong's re-export won't keep going constantly. And our re-export is much bigger than, or actually 100 times bigger than our local exports these days. As long as there are growth around the region and there's a demand for certain type of business or services, which can go offshore or provide offshore, that is our opportunity. And in terms of legal profession, as mentioned by your experts, that we have so much of international experts here and institution here, provided we have even a better institutional arrangement, like agreements between the Hong Kong government versus China and other counterparties, we see a lot of opportunities being provided. For instance, I think trade dispute is easily going to grow more rather than less if trade were to grow by 500 billion a year under RCEP. And where you can handle that, I believe that some of them will try to handle in their own countries, but there's still a lot of things because it's cross-border and because it's involved in a lot of international norms and relationships. Then Hong Kong will also play a role in that. we're better to have some institutional arrangement to support that. But even without that, I think a lot of our lawyers has been capturing the opportunities around the region already. So I would say that what we need to do here now is that both the initiative from down bottom, individual initiatives, firms and law firms and people to try to put us in a better position, but also the government itself need to work closer, first to get into RCEP as soon as possible, as well as to connect with some key parties, not just the mainland, I think. We have to look at, not say, for instance, ASEAN is a very important place. Some people think that Hong Kong is competing with some other places like Singapore, but we are always some area where we can differentiate. For instance, people say that this government here in Hong Kong is the one that is being appears on the court as a defendant most often than any other governments. And that actually is an interesting feature for some of the business people when they think that they may get into trouble with some of the governments. Which places they prefer to deal with is a place where government is not something you cannot touch. So I guess these are areas or different characteristics that Hong Kong can play along and capture the strength and the opportunities around.
Thank you very much, Nick. We have a question from Mr. Takayuki Yusui. The question is, what benefits will Hong Kong solicitors being able to practice in the Greater Bay Area bring to FIEs established under PRC law in the area? I make a quick response, then I leave it to the speakers. I think, as Ms. Pang said, the initiative allowing Hong Kong lawyers to practice in the Greater Bay Area is a giant step, if you ask me. Hong Kong is under one country, two systems. Hong Kong is under common law, as I always said. China's, of course, is is practice of a sort of like a socialist system, civil law system, and in a way, through an exam allowing Hong Kong common law lawyers to practice in the southern part of China is a very big step in terms of development in China. What I foresee personally, if I were that person, having qualified in Hong Kong, also qualified in the Greater Bay Area, I will have a much bigger aspects that I can advise my clients. If my client is a Hong Kong client or international client, he has a Hong Kong company and also have a factory in southern part of China, I can actually sort of like a one-stop shop advisor to my client, how to protect his rights in China as a foreign investors in China. I can help with that aspect. And also if the dispute is brought back to Hong Kong, then I also can advise on the Hong Kong aspects of it. And of course, the international aspects of it as well. So I at least I can see that advantage. I don't know whether Ms. Pang share my optimism.
I think like when you mentioned about a foreign FIE in mainland, I think like of course like you can see there's a lot of cross-border transaction both in trade and investment. Of course, in the law firm at the moment in Hong Kong, if you are a foreign law firm, you only advise on like the foreign law, but not Hong Kong law. And then maybe in a Hong Kong law firm, you find you get the Hong Kong based advice from a Hong Kong solicitor. But at the same time, maybe on the door sitting next door to that lawyer, also there's a foreign lawyer. So you can get a foreign advice. Of course, as a whole, the law firm can sort of provide their expertise in the area where their lawyers can give. But I mean, we're talking about like in the coming younger generation. Now they can sit for the exam in the Greater Bay Area. And then there will be a person qualified both in Hong Kong laws as well as PRC mainland laws. And of course, that person could also be qualified in like Australia, in Singapore, and other jurisdictions. I think for the development for the lawyers itself is great because they'll be able to advise laws from different jurisdictions. And from the customer, from the client's point of view. So if you are having engagement with a specific lawyer, he'll be having the expertise, having the capability to serve you. And I think it's great that the GBA law exam can sort of give a push to like the Hong Kong local talent to become also a PRC qualified lawyer in certain area. So it increased the capabilities of Hong Kong lawyers as a whole. I think it's definitely a good direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the two speakers on this particular? Okay, I'm looking at the time now. As I think we are running on short of time, so it's better to call it an end. Today we have heard from the Trade Development Council Director of Research, Mr. Nicholas Kwan, the promising overview of the RECP and Greater Bay Area, and the Hong Kong's unique position under these two initiatives. President Pang and Chairman Dykes also shared their views on how Hong Kong legal profession can be benefited under these two frameworks. So, this is the end of this session. Before we go, can we take a quick screenshot of the speakers? This is a new feature nowadays. Group photo by way of a screenshot. So the Secretariat, please look at the camera. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the camera. Okay. Is it okay? Okay, thank you. So after the break, we'll come back to the second part of today's event, to concurrent breakout sessions featuring RECP again, if you still not enough discussion on this part of area. RECP, Hong Kong National Security Law, a very hot topic. Greater Bay again, Greater Bay Area again, and Law Tech. We have 4 concurrent sessions. All you have to do is to select your interested topic, press the respective links in the confirmation emails we sent you earlier, and you will be admitted to the session when ready. So please contact the Law Society Secretariat in the chat room if you need any assistance. So thanks once again for joining us for the keynote session. We will not take a break. We come back about in 10 minutes, I would say. 10 minutes break before commencing the concurrent breakout sessions. So see you again in a minute. Thank you.